make a recommendation as a way forward on the matter. To say the COO is saying this matter is not the first time it's brought before the PMA of the Northwest Province. It was brought before, unfortunately, in our coming in as the PEC is for the first time I come across them myself. However, majority of the speakers, the idea on this, on the recommendations, but I want them to say the PMA must then agree to say we must take the matter back to the PEC of the Northwest Province, because as is now, it is preparing itself to find space or way to the National Assembly that is coming. Unfortunately, that is the truth. We cannot run away from it. As you are saying, you've been doing presentation to other PMA in other provinces. So the PEC of the Northwest, with the authority or the powers given by this PMA, must then go back to a PEC and process and see if it will find consensus on this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anybody provoked? Okay. Before I get back to you and we resolve, I want to take 2 or 3 municipal managers or CFOs. You can't come here and die in silence. It can't be allowed. You have an obligation to advise council. That is why you have a seat in council. Okay, any CFO, what is your take? Let's check out the the CFO. Okay, you've got the CFO in an Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Municipal Manager for the City of Madlotana. Having gone through the presentation, a well-arranged presentation, I would say that from the point of view that it wants to be encapsulated to benefit with of compensation, it's a fall short in paying for the quota, and the employees are at times found wanting where they had to claim. But I'd also want to urge and implore upon the chair to can allow the councillors to can allow the members actually be fully capacitated or fully, if they've called for the workshop. From a municipality side, I think I would want to be the also discuss with the bargaining council as well.
Thank you very much. Another? Mayors, please volunteer your CFOs and MMs. They can volunteer themselves. Okay, thank you very much, Alderman. This matter is serious. Ne? It's an important benefit, and therefore it's serious. It must be thoroughly interrogated. That's why we booked the venue and the accommodation.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I can indicate that we were sitting with a situation as Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, where the last time Department of Employment and Labor came to us on the issue of compensation was 2011. We have been raising an accrual over the years so that we can be able to make sure that by the time they come, Department of Employment and Labor, we are able to pay. So Salga being proactive, I think it will be assisting a great deal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last one. Any taker? Okay. The PMA, you want to come in before I resolve?
No, I can't come.
Okay.
I can just make the last points and then the resolution can be taken. I will not stand in the resolution.
1 minute.
I think the beauty of the nature of the discussion is in the fact that as we seated here, considered as the PMA, we are understanding the significance of the matter. Even though perhaps the shortcoming is that that exposure was not thoroughly canvassed before we got here. So there can be no doubt in our minds as the administration, guided by the decisions of governance structures, that we will do exactly like that. Invest time in workshopping the decision makers to know the idea itself and its pros and cons behind any support that's provided, whenever or whenever that support is concretized on behalf of the municipalities. That is going to happen. There's no doubt about it, including what you see in recommendation 3, where we intend to go beyond just the PEC and the PMA. We want to draw the municipalities themselves to their HR departments where they can present their experiences so that whatever approach is adopted thereafter is fully informed by the various experiences of municipalities. So we respect that the NEC, the PMA has engaged on the matter, and it feels that perhaps the first point of call must be to tighten the decision-making at the PEC level first before we get to the PMA. It doesn't take away from the importance of the matter and how it was obviously dealt with.
Yeah, that's the advantage of being a comrade and later bureaucrat. So he technically made the summary I was going to make. He needed to make it himself. But bring back the recommendations. The recommendations. Yeah, no, thank you very much. And so the PMA resolves that we note progress made in the repurposed municipal compensation and that's one. We note progress, right? And the same would apply to number 2, that we do not endorse. We note the progressive approach in securing the licensing mandate. Aggregate progress report, right? So we're noting. Oh, I thought the brief we got is that those who came before us already endorsed, but okay. So we note the need to endorse. Okay, fine. We agree on that one. And then the third, then we know the need to endorse. Number 4, we resolve that there be further capacitation of the PEC and the general Salga membership in the progress about this important initiative. Council has resolved. The PMA has resolved. Thank you very much, Program Director. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Chairperson. Sorry. We are proceeding, members, without any waste of time, because I see other members are now tired. We'll then call upon stage Auditor General South Africa. Here is Northwest Senior Manager, Mr. Jan Leroux. Yeah. No, there is no challenge. Mr. Leroux, take the stage. Mr. Chauge is the third presenter. I was briefed. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. Good afternoon, Chair, Honorable MEC, Mayors, Executive Mayor, Speakers, all protocol observed. Like Program Director indicated, I'm John Leroux, a Senior Manager in the Office of the Auditor General. For those that don't know me, I think most of you will know me. So yeah, the presentation that I want to bring to you today is on a reflection of the Section 79 and 80 committees at the municipalities in Northwest. So if I can look at the presentation, just a short reflection on our reputation promise. Most of you will know it by heart, but I think it's also very important just to reflect again on our mission as Auditor General of South Africa. So we say we have a constitutional mandate, and as the supreme audit institution of South Africa, we exist to strengthen our country's democracy by enabling oversight, accountability, and governance in the public sector through our audits, thereby building public confidence. So I think we all can agree while we are here to enable oversight, accountability, and governance as part of the Salga convention. So it's much relevant for us as AG also to support Salga in this regard. Then the next slide is very, very interesting. I want to take us back to school. For me, it was many years ago. The teacher usually asked us to draw an ecosystem. I'm not sure if you are familiar with an ecosystem, but then usually as children, we draw the sun and then the river and the fish and the bird. And everyone is dependent on each other to have a living. So for me, we apply this concept also in our environment, in IG environment, public sector environment. So on the presentation, you will see on the left-hand side, we have the municipality. From the top, we have the mayor, speaker, as well as council and impact. Then we have the senior management and officials that is also then supported by internal audit and the audit committee. So as AG, we deem the different committees, councils as the decision makers at the municipality that needs to make sure this ecosystem is functioning. On the right-hand side, we have our coordinating institutions. We have our political provincial leadership, the Troika with Troika, as well as then coordinating departments that will be your Premier, Cooperative Governance and Treasury. Also, your legislature role, your PPIC, portfolio committees. So that side within is the support, intervention, and oversight. And I also want to add Salga also under that side for local government. Then in the middle, we have IG. Through our audits, we want to you as councillors, mayors, MEC, also to try and influence through our recommendations to make sure that when we all agree to these recommendations and see that it is actually implemented. Last tool that we can use is the enforcement part. I feel you're all familiar with the material irregularity concept, MI. That will be the last resort. And then If all these role players actively play their part in the ecosystem, we then believe that the people that we all serve, the citizens of this country, will have then a better life. For me, I think it's pretty, it's a good picture. Just to reflect on it's a privilege on what it was out and this time is for all of us in this room is to have a green picture here. So now it's colorful, but eventually we all want to move green. Greens, it's an unqualified audit opinion with no findings, meaning clean audit. So I think why we say that, if you look at the right-hand side of the presentation, basically none of the municipalities have adequately dealt with the irregular expenditure. And I think it's really a role critical that Salga can also play in assisting these municipalities in guiding them how to prop of irregular expenditure. Now, just to reflect a bit on irregular expenditure, why are we always saying, yeah, let's investigate, let's investigate, let's investigate? So for us, it's basically to determine whether there was value for money. If there was a project, it was classified as irregular expenditure. So now we need to establish, did the municipality get value for money? Was the deliverables there? Was it at a reasonable price, a market-related price? If not, there's losses. And if there's a loss, MFMA say it needs to be recovered. What is the loss and from who do we need to recover this loss? So for me, it is very, very important from a loss perspective to make sure that this is investigated and that if there's losses that it can be recovered and then it can be used then for other services that needs to be rendered at the place. Then is impact and not effective in dealing with these continuous increasing of irregular expenditure. So we say impact is not always supported by the accounting officer. When we engage impacts, they say, yeah, we request documents, the AOC is not giving them the documents to investigate. Also, impact, the office impact is not capacitated with experienced staff to assist the councillors with the investigations. And yeah, another contributing factor, especially last year, is the instability in the accounting officer positions in the province. that also hinders the investigation of this irregular expenditure. And then lastly, also the disciplinary boards, was they not established or functional at most of the municipalities. How Salga can play a critical role in this is again to guide impact, how to do a proper investigation, what is needed to do an investigation, and also progress on establishing disciplinary boards. What is the function of the disciplinary board? And then who should be part of this disciplinary board? For me, it looks like there's a gap, as not all municipal disciplinary board at the municipality. Then the next slide, we're going to deal with Section 80 committees. Section 80 committees is usually the municipalities with an executive mayor system, where you have subcommittees that is supporting the executive mayor. So from our audits, we've identified there's quite a number of executive committees that the municipalities have, with the main ones be your finance, infrastructure, community services, local economic development, as well as the corporate support. However, I think we can all agree on the ground, we don't feel the executive committees is really having an impact on service delivery on the ground. If you ask someone in a town, do you feel your executive committee for infrastructure, for example, on the ground, are they adding value? I will say no. Look at the street, look at the roads, look at the failing infrastructure of government. We really need to assess why is these committees not having that impact that we so much desire. Then I'm going to ask a question to the members. Share, but just manage the committees. For me, if you have some information, the committee, that committee will probably perform better. I think the extent will be the committee members, just how we can better manage committees and to manage the perform. Because ultimately this committee is supporting the mayor. And then, yeah, unfortunately, if the committee is not doing their roles, then the mayor is also oversight. Then on the next slide, we're just going to do some recommendations on how can Section 79 and 80 committees be effective. So the first one, like I touched on already, is stability of council. We found it so many times, if council is not stable, the committees is also not stable, I think for obvious reasons. And now that really hampers the effective use of these committees, because every time there's a new committee, new chairs, there's absolutely no stability to investigate these irregular expenditures. Also, and I think it's a critical role Salga can also play, is to proper train these committees on their roles and responsibilities. Sometimes impact is there, but members doesn't really know where to start their job. What must impact do and how must impact. So I think really Salga can play a critical role in that training. Also then the capacitation of administration staff. Sometimes councillors indicate they don't even have laptops. They have one support member. So maybe assist just to an ideal structure of an impact office. How many researchers? Is there a need for a manager in the impact office? And then what these people needs to impact. Then the execution of their mandate and accountability, including irregular meetings, tracking of resolutions, and in meaningful progress in implementing the municipal programs. And then for me, the last two bullet points is of critical importance. Is for these committees for impact is particularly because they have the ability to enforce consequence management when their resolutions are not implemented. So if impact made resolutions in council that is adopted, and let's say, for instance, the MM is not implementing those resolutions, then they didn't implement or implement a legal binding recommendation. But with that said, then the recommendations that is adopted should really be, the focus should be on key and impactful resolutions by council to make sure that that person that needs to implement the resolution know exactly what he or she needs to do. We'll usually talk about the SMART principles. So I think maybe be mindful as impacts is making recommendations to council, that these recommendations met the SMART principles. Then for section 80 committees, somewhat we recommend is then to align these committees between the mayoral and the council committees to ensure synergy, also to focus on key strategic areas of the municipality and less operational. Usually when we engage AOs, they indicate councillors is more involved in administration actions. So let's make sure that these section 80 committees stick to what they are there to do, to provide that strategic focus. Then the second last bullet point is also to capacitate the municipalities with preventative controls, to entrench a performance management system, and then lastly to capacitate the municipalities with capable and competent staff. Then our call to action, that is also included in our general reports. I think most of the members is familiar with our general report. Our theme this year was the top block there is to enforce accountability to drive then the required change. So for us, if these accountability ecosystem role players, if any one of them is not fulfilling their duties, let's enforce that accountability to drive then the required change. So on the left-hand side, we say that the council should enhance their oversight through well-capacitated impacts to consistently and effectively hold mayors and the accounting officers accountable for the repeat issues and substandard performance. And then council should then also use the opportunity to fill the remaining vacancies in senior leadership with skilled and experienced individuals. And then also to enhance the performance management system and processes at municipalities to include all staff members in line with section 67 of it's a critical role Salga can also play to assist the municipalities, because for us, if someone's performance is not measured, it's really difficult to make that person perform. So we need to have that performance management system in place for all staff. We're not saying go and pay performance bonuses, but at least if there's a performance management system in place, there can be other awards to the staff members through recognition, etc. Then lastly, then the mayors should then also ensure that there is performance contracts with the MMs, and then also evaluated based on outcomes and not inputs. I think we found so many times that the performance agreements with MMs is just on inputs and not on the outcome. So let's also consider to change that agreements to be outcome-based and not inputs. Then lastly, on the last slide, is just how we can all work together. So number one, as AG in the Northwest, we already briefed the MEC on the audit outcomes and our recommendations that we made to culture shift. I see MEC is nodding her head. So yeah, we start from the top to make sure that the coordinating institutions is also doing what they are supposed to do. Then on point number 2, we also interact with the accounting officers and mayors. I think most of the mayors and the MMs in this room, there was already culture shift engagements done with you guys, where we signed off on plans. I see the chair is nodding. So yeah, if we want to make this work and make the province better, let's work together and see that those plans are ultimately executed. Then training, capacitation and training, to provide training and insights with various platforms. I know at Impact Forums, we always present, and thank you always for the invites. But let's continue to strengthen that training interventions, also with the assistance from Salga. Then number 4, we also have regular engagements with the committees, impacts, to provide our key insights on areas of that require action. And then number 5 is to influence through our briefing documents to investigate the irregular expenditure, and then to also implement consequence management. And then report on the investigation reports are presented to council to enable fair and transparent accountability and oversight process. And then lastly, like I said, that's the last measure we can have, is to do our enforcement part through material irregularities. I think most of the municipalities already have material irregularities that is being dealt with. I can just think of the landfill sites, the wastewater treatment plants. For us as AG, yeah, we really need to also be on the lookout for the public. And if we need to drive it through the material irregularity process, we then unfortunately need to do it. But I think I must also commend the municipalities with mayors and MMs to be acceptable to this material irregularity process, and to see it as a tool where we can work together and ultimately improve the service delivery of the municipalities. And then program director, that's all from my side. I hope I didn't took too much time. And once again, thank you for the opportunity that we could have made a briefing at this members assembly, and all the best for the remaining agenda items and the remaining day tomorrow. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Leroux. You can do better than that. Babamba Choche, because Barobis. Thank you. Then we proceed, members. Without any waste of time, I've said I'm going to do my work to direct the program. The second presenter is from Salga, Mr. Michael Chauke, specialist inclusive governance and councillor welfare. Aremo Nema Khofi Anzata Kwano. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, leadership and colleagues. Perhaps it was quite opportune that I actually came after the AG, then I can address some of the issues that they have put forward. I think we all know, most of us in the municipalities have got Section 80 committees, Section 79 committees. without fail. Most municipalities have got those. But do we understand what are those responsibilities and the distinction between the two? So I'll just want to start from that premise so that we all have a understanding of what is the key difference between a Section 80 committee, what do they do? Vis-a-vis a Section 79 and a Section 79A committee. Because if we don't understand that, then the discussions will not be quite as impactful because they don't play the same role. It's very different. I'm hearing oversight. Which one plays oversight? Which doesn't play? Section 79 plays oversight. What does the Section 80 committee do? But in a lot of our municipalities, and I'll showcase it later on, there's so many Section 80 committees vis-a-vis Section 79 committees. Why is it the case? So we've got a lot more committees in the support or advisory in terms of playing oversight in our municipalities. So that there's a distortion within local government around the kind of committee system that we've got. And I would want to encourage municipalities to be intentional in terms of the kind of governance model that you adopt. And we've got guidelines around that at Salga. So one of the fundamental rules of good governance, the executive must account to council. So the colleague from AG said there's MPECs in municipalities, and I do a lot of work with MPECs. What we often get is that the executive does not want to account. So what they're saying, Chairperson, when you're in the municipality, we're in the other cap, you don't want to go to MPEC and account. Why is it the case? How many times have we seen in Parliament when the executive authority is not part of the delegation, the entire delegation gets sent back to Pretoria? So why is it difficult at the local government level? We want them to say, no, it's officials who must account. I differ. In terms of Section 151, subsection vested within council, council delegates to the executive mayor or to EXCO, the executive authority. So the executive members of council must account. Amen? Depending on how it sets up the municipality's committee system, it makes it difficult for committees to be effective because of what I've highlighted earlier on, that there are so many more Section 80 committees with its inherent distortions, because these very people that then have to come, and some of them also become Section 79 members, they get conflicted in the process. So what we're going to call for is that we need to strengthen the oversight mechanisms within council, that you can then effectively have accountability and effective oversight within our municipalities. I won't dwell much on the preface. So there are various levels of accountability within the system. We're not saying officials will not be accountable, but there are just those various levels of accountability. And perhaps I should have started, I was sitting with academics earlier on. I often like when I start these kind of presentations, give the homework up front. So what we're going to propose is that municipalities must then have terms of reference in place, systems of delegations, and work plans. Because I can bet a lot of you, if I had to do a quick assessment, you'll say you've got committees, but they don't sit. Or you don't know what they're supposed to be doing, because we also get a lot of those. And that already tells me there's no terms of reference, there's no delegations, and there's no work plan. And we've heard about separation of powers between the executive, legislative, and judicial arms. Within local government, we don't worry much about the judicial arm. We focus on the legislative and executive authorities. And I've highlighted already, council delegates to members of the, to the mayor, to the executive mayor, or to EXCO. So what we want to create, there must be checks and balances. The executive cannot hold themselves accountable. There's another structure in terms of the oversight committees that must hold the executive to account. So there must be proper and effective checks and balances. And this absence of separation of executive and legislative functions in local government limits the oversight and accountability. Governance in municipalities in South Africa is distressed because of weak accountability measures resulting from a lack of separation of functions. So we need to then have those proper and effective accountability systems in place where the executive comes and accounts for what they are there to do. So you cannot, what we want to avoid is having people becoming a referee and a player at the same time. And what I often want to reflect on, where the executive finds themselves unwilling to account. Stephen Cove says that you either make yourself accountable or you'll be made accountable by circumstances. And often when I address leadership, I say, if leadership is doing the good work that you are supposed to be doing, why would you find it difficult to account? Because surely you'd want to say, you put me in this position, I am doing what you said I must do, and this is the good work that I'm doing. So already there's red flags when I hear some of the leadership that we've got, not all of you, don't want to account. Already it's red flags. Because once you do the good work, I would want to shine, wouldn't you? I'm not a preacher. No? So what must be in place in terms of reference that come about in terms of Section 53 of the Systems Act? Part of that, it will contain a definition of area of responsibility. So it will tell you all the internal structures and functionaries within the municipality. These is what you are supposed to be doing. Also, that's systems of delegations that come about in terms of Section 59. I will not spend too much time on it, but those must be in place for all the role players. I will share the presentation. I went a bit into the detail so that once you get the presentation, you can then also reflect in your own leisure. So what I will want to focus on slightly in terms of the amended roles of the speaker. So the speakers play a critical role in terms of ensuring that there's a functionality of council committees. So what's the highlighted part that I've put there, they must ensure the legislative authority of the council functions effectively. So it is the role of the speaker to ensure that the committees of council are functioning effectively. Is responsible for the effective oversight of the executive authority of the municipality. So the speaker must ensure that those committees can hold the executive to account. So they're not fighting you, it's the role that play as speakers over the executive. Must ensure effectiveness of the committee established in terms of Section 79. So now you are responsible as speaker to ensure that those committees are functioning in the necessary support for them to be able to. And then here, I just want to highlight the key differences between Section 79 and 80 committees and the Section 79A committee. We all know what's a Section 79A committee. That's fine. Section 80 committees, there must be chaired by members of the mayoral committee or members of EXCO. So you cannot have any other person other than members of EXCO or members of the mayoral committee being the chairpersons of those committees. And they account to the mayoral committee or to the EXCO. So they don't report directly to council. They report through the mayor or the executive mayor to council on the issues that have been delegated to the executive mayor. On the other side, Section 79, Section 79A committees are committees of council. They don't report to the speaker. They report to council. They only furnish the speaker with the report for the speaker to include it in the agenda of council. So no one can change an MPAC report or Section 79A committee report except council itself. So in the earlier presentation, it was said that MPAC enforces consequence management. I humbly differ because MPAC is a committee of council. It's only council that can enforce. MPAC makes recommendations, but the decision that you take as council must be sound in law. Otherwise, you can be held accountable for the decisions that you take. So this just showcases the distinct differences between the two types of committees. On the one hand, municipal council regulates functions and may delegate duties. On the other side, the executive mayor or executive committee delegates powers and duties. The municipal council elects their chairpersons. On the other side, the chairperson is appointed by the executive mayor or by EXCO by virtue of those members being members of the mayoral committee or EXCO. Oversight committees may co-opt non-councillors. However, I have yet to see this being done. It says, and we always get told as with, let's say, MPEC, they will say they don't have the capacity. Yet the law says you can co-opt non-councillors, but you need the authorization of council. But I'm not available for co-option. I don't know if my colleagues at the back are available. I've got enough on my plate already. On the other side, committee comprises of councillors. Oversight committee plays an oversight role of the actual performance of municipal council. So Section 79 committees come after the fact, and they want to trace how did you arrive at the decisions that you arrived at. Okay, I'm almost done. The law says MPECs must meet 4 times a year, so once every quarter. If MPEC tells me they are meeting 4 times a year, they're doing a good job, no? I'll be very worried if you say you meet 4 times a year and you're MPEC committee. Because part of what you must be looking at as well includes your Section 71 reports with your monthly reports. And my colleague from AG said, there's so much irregular, unauthorized, and fruitless and wasteful expenditure. How are you going to be able to investigate it if you're only meeting once every 3 months? It's not practical. So there must be a work plan in terms of how are you going to discharge in terms of your unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. And you must further have a reduction strategy in terms of your unauthorized, irregular, and fruitless and wasteful expenditure. So you must show a case by 2024, how are you going to get rid of that expenditure of your books? But you don't wake up and say, we write off. There must be a proper investigation and show us, this is how we arrived at that. But first of all, you must be able to recover the money if you can recover it, write off if you can't, but importantly, refer issues, if there's issues of financial misconduct, to the disciplinary board, because people must be arrested or disciplinary processes must ensue. Because we've instituted criminal proceedings, we wait for the outcome of the court proceedings before we can do the labor relations processes in the municipality. Those 2 processes can happen simultaneously. So municipality also has an obligation of what have you done within the municipality around issues of it. Amen. So what we've also said must be in place. Ineffective monitoring of councils and committees of council resolutions is contrary to the principles of good governance. So what we often see in a lot of municipalities, those who've been councillors for a long time, you'll probably note you've taken this number of resolutions, the implementation is probably this much, because we have proper tracking mechanisms. And speakers have got a key role in terms of ensuring that we develop those resolution mechanisms are actually implemented and hold people accountable that are not implementing what you've resolved as council. And what we recommend to the PMA that municipalities review the practice of the results and the potential conflict areas through the terms of reference, including lines of accountability and delegations policies to ensure that no conflict situations are invited through inappropriate or overlapping delegations. The Section 79 committees be strengthened for effective accountability and oversight. That municipalities should take heed and create optimal governance to enable ensure better accountability and responsiveness to its.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Chauke, but just wait. Slide the recommendations. They're still busy. Chair, we are waiting for them to flight. The recommendations for municipalities, authority. Assist us with recommendations. You can erase them quickly. Yeah, you can't erase the recommendations like that. First Deputy Chair, can you give Chair that roving mic?
What do you want?
Oza Babamlef.
No, thank you very much. Here are the recommendations, PMA. I don't think we are tired to scrutinize them in the same way as we did as the, Tsheletsabo Mankadlo. Over to you, Re Mokhomotsi, advocate.
Thank you, Chair. And let me thank the PMA for having touched on this very critical subject in local government. If not handled properly, you would think that speakers are in contest with mayors, whereas that's not the case. Speakers have a legislative responsibility. Now, in my former life, as the speaker, we tried going this route in Rustenburg, but there are lessons from there that I think would help so that we are able to achieve what we need here. I'm thankful that a clear distinction has been done between what is a 79, what is an 80, because in municipalities where our members are, there's a conflict between a mayor and a speaker on who holds the MM accountable, or the administration, or the executive accountable, or who accounts to who. So it might be a proper recommendation first. And I think this is what we submitted in Limpopo, that we need a speakers and executive mayors joint forum. It's a recommendation to come and clarify the subject. All of them across, bring MMs inside. It's very important. Because once this clarity is understood, most of our municipalities would understand the difference and the need for oversight. You see what AG is saying? AG is saying there's need for leadership, there's need for oversight. It doesn't exist. The reason why you have more Section 80 committees, it is because there's not an understanding that Section 80 committees don't play oversight. So you find that councillors sit in Section 80 committees, they sit there with maybe the CFO and others in the finance committee. It's just a question and answer session. You're not doing your work, you're doing your work, you're not doing your work, you're doing your work. They get tired, they leave. That's what's happening in the practical. So that recommendation first is necessary. The second one, I think is the other recommendations here are proper, but that is the first. The other one, Chair, I don't know to what extent can we lobby the MEC for finance or maybe even the provincial legislature, if they can necessarily provide the resources for this work. I know the MEC for Finance avails that technical team of CFOs to assist MPEC before they meet the administration. Normally, that's what happens. To what extent can they assist us even further? Because I know maybe from the COCTA level, they might assist us, and we should promote that they assist us in trying to resources, because we find that in municipalities, even though they want to go this route, the politics of the day is that the Section 79s just want to get a salary similar to an MMC. So they reduce it to that level, not understanding what is actually happening. So the resource model is also important. Maybe we should start it first unresourced, because I think there are 2 municipalities that do that in the province, but they resource. I think it's Dr. KK and it's Jamie Marks. I think they have those committees, and maybe we must learn from those experiences as well. So I want to agree to this with that additional one, and to see to what extent can we lobby legislature and the MEC, COCTA, finance to support. It's very dicey, the subject. It needs to be approached in that manner. I know, Chair, you are the executive mayor elsewhere. It's a touchy subject. Let's attend to this. It's very important. That's the only way we can improve, because MPECs are small if it's a big municipality, and then we dump everything at MPEC and no oversight is done. So that's just my issues learned from my former life. Yes.
No, thank you very much. I reserve my comments on your former life. We will learn a lot in that workshop that you are proposing. Is there any other taker with regard to these recommendations? Okay, let me check first if there's any other. Is there anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. Over to you.
That there should be an agent forum between the mayor and states, because truly oversight at the local sphere of government is difficult. Because as and when we'll be asking questions to the mayors of the city, will be misconstrued as overreaching to the executive responsibilities. So it's so much important that we understand this oversight function in as far as executive leaders are concerned. It's very important. Not sure I have written something, I don't know one of the slides, let me check what is the time.
Okay.
No, yeah, I think it was the delegation system. I've realized that many of our councillors are using outdated delegation functions. So it will be proper for Salga to agency, provide interaction of those delegations. Because I believe everyone in the municipality is of their, who they are. They perform their delegated functions subject to section 59 of the System Act that deals with delegations. So now it's important that we all know where we are, our delegated responsibilities. And then I'm happy that we have verified this separation of roles that at the local sphere of government and no separation of both this legislative and executive authority, because this interdependence, we need to understand it, because maybe let me make an example. As the speaker and the custodian of public participation, now I gave a campaign for the executive to engage annual report. So if I don't organize that space for executive mayor wage, it means council will not comply, not both legislative and executive, that responsibility. It means we're not failing my soul. So if the speaker and the mayor can understand that if we work together and achieve both
Thank you. And the PMA resolves to adopt the recommendations with additional a resolution that directs the PEC a meeting speakers and mayors. And when I was elected the only chairperson. The rest are deputies. And I lost my line totally. Okay, conclude what I was saying. One day you will share my. Thank you very much. What we are saying is that we are adding the last resolution that the PMA directs the PEC to convene an urgent and special meet, not only be limited to mayors. It must be extended to troikas so that the whips also understand what to whip, right? So it's an extended meeting of troikas. Will find a proper name for that meeting to take the matter of the sections 79 and 80 committees further. It is all the recommendation duly uttered by the PMA. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Re a leboga modulasetulo. A re nneng Ntate Chauke matsogo. Colleagues, we proceed to the next presentation. Department of Cooperative Governance, Mr. Wayne McCommons, Chief Director, Municipal Governance and Structures. Maybe we can correct us, say name proper. Kita kotla omo nyana but. Oh, okay. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. While they are waiting for the presentation, and members of the PMA, I want to emphasize on this point. We are leading South Africa. We're not on holiday. Ours coming here was paid for by state funds. And we're sitting here in the presence of the Auditor General. And minute by minute, our tables are becoming empty, yet we are the leaders. And we're talking transformation and change, and that we will accelerate service delivery. This level of discipline can't be tolerated. Now, PDO, I direct you that at the end of a session, you must develop a mechanism to take stock of who of the members of the PMA are here. We will do so tomorrow when we start and when we end, so that some of the monies that have been spent here can be recovered by various councils. It is high time that we lead this country and we lead it properly.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you can switch on the heaters, it's getting colder. But maybe I complain, I know.
No, thank you, Program Director, and good afternoon to members of the PMA and the Salga's executive, as well as the colleagues from our provincial counterparts, COCTA, and mayors, speakers, as well as whips that are present in this meeting, as well as other councillors who are serving in different capacities as councillors, and to other officials as well from different stakeholders who are and other distinguished guests. I greet you and all protocols observed. I am Samulo Mate from COCTA. I'm coming here in on behalf of Mr. Wayne McComens, our Chief Director responsible for Municipal Governance and Structures Act implementation. I'm also with my colleagues here, Mr. Loiso Ngoko and Isaac Kambule from the department. I'm honored to take you through the Code of Conduct regulations that were published recently by the Minister on the 14th of June this year. It's almost 3 weeks after they were published. The presentation is structured in terms of the background and also provides undertaken a wide overview of those regulations as well as the details relating to the relevant provisions to the regulations and the case laws that are cited as part of the interventions we brought into the regulations. You will be aware that in the President signed into law the Local Municipal Structures Act, and the act came into effect.
Just hold on. Can we come back to the same PMA? Thank you.
Program Director. Yes, the Structures Act came into effect on the 1st of November 2021 when all councillors came into office for this present term of local government. And before Amendment Act, the Code of Conduct for Council, you know that on the structure system due to that sequential amendment, it had now to be migrated to the Structures Act because it was form of councillors and it brought the structures. So in that amendment as well, initially we have had regulations that were published in 2001 prescribing the amount of gift that a councillor must declare, which was 1,000 then. And so because now the code has been migrated to the Structures Act, now it left a legislative vacuum, and hence we have had these regulations wherein the minister prescribed the amount which a councillor will declare, and it's the same corresponding provision, is still 1,000 rand. So over and Above that, you would know that the minister as well is empowered describing any matter that will operationalize or facilitate the implementation thereof of the Structures Act. So in fulfillment of that, the minister further expanded some of the relevant interventions in the regulations, which I'll deal with in the ensuing slides. So in terms of the consultative process, the regulations were consulted during at the departmental level from the technical MINMEC as well. It went to MINMEC, and there were also some briefing sessions with provinces. And later it went back to technical MINMEC after incorporating some of the inputs that were received through that consultative process. And it further went to MINMEC, and after that, there was MECs and Salga. And all comments were received from all the MECs and Salga as well. And after that, comments were incorporated back into the regulations, and they were taken off to the Office of the State Law Advisor for vetting, and also to ensure that the provisions are in line with the Constitution. Pursuant to that process, the regulations were published for comments as part of the regulatory process, and with an open window of 30 days, they were published in 26 October 2022, 4th of October, and then closed on 26. And comments were received from the members of the public, as well as the stakeholders that are represented there in other municipalities, as well as Western Cape, those institutions that are listed there in Northwest time in terms of outlining them. So this is how the regulations are structured. As I've indicated, published in the Gazette for implementation on the 14th, and also there is some circular in the committee in terms of the implementation. So this is how the outline of the regulations, which I'll deal with individual items in the ensuing slides. The first regulation provides for, item 1 provides for the definitions. So these are just the definitions that applies in the regulations, and read together with those that is assigned in the founding legislation, which is the Structures Act. The application, in terms of application, the regulation extends to not only councillors, but additional members, which are those that are participating in the proceedings of the councils. So item 3 of the regulation, regulation 3 deals with some re-emphasis in terms of how councillors must behave, just to ensure that we maintain the decorum in the municipal councils. So it's about councillors behaving in an orderly manner in the meetings of the council, either in the council chamber or if the meeting is held virtually, whenever the case may be. So it indicates that it prescribes that if a councillor behaves in disorderly manner or unruly behavior, such councillors may be removed in the meeting. That's like we see in Parliament, but that should be done having due regard. So the other aspect that has been included in the regulation, this was made to ensure that the critical infrastructure is being protected. So because we've noticed that in some of these protests, you find that they are perpetuated by some of the loss of infrastructure in the process, and which is expensive to reconstruct or maintain. So there's a clause that says if a councillor orchestrates a violent protest or labor unrest, then he or she must be disciplined in terms of the code, and such councillor may be reported to SAPS. You would have seen also SAPS is dealing with some other corresponding a bill that this seeks to deal with protecting the critical infrastructure. So that is a corresponding provision as well. So item 4 deals with attendance at meeting. This is actually, firstly, we have seen an instances where councillors are being unreasonably denied leave of absence. So that has been catered to say such leave of absence may not be unreasonably denied. And furthermore, there have been some instances where we've noticed that those councillors with disability are not being able to attend certain meetings to transact council business. So to ensure that they are also catered for, the code is extended to council to ensure that such councillors have adequate access to participate effectively in the council meetings. And more importantly, it also deals with, you will have seen there were a lot of disruptions in council meetings, and part of the intervention that was brought there in was to ensure that walkouts are prohibited, which I will deal with later. Part of the case laws that came out in terms of attendance of meetings, which I would like to read verbatim because I may not misinterpret what the court has pronounced on the matter. So firstly, there was a case between KEM and others, as well as Electoral Commission, where it was indicated that in relation to the walkouts, that councillors are elected to undertake the work of the council on behalf of the citizenry. And sometimes the ties of politics will place one party in the majority and sometimes another. But it further indicates that it remains the duty of all councillors to facilitate and not obstruct the workings of council. So for councillors, to draw salaries while refusing to attend meetings and thereby of council will be a breach of their obligation as councillors. The other matter that was brought into the High Court as well between the DA Premier and of Gauteng, it was pronounced that walking out of the council meeting does not serve the councillors' electorate and does not fulfill the constitutional and executive duties they were elected for. Attendance will, due to the nature of the voting process, always result in a decision being taken. For importance of serving in the municipal council is that party, political affiliation and agendas are skewed for the greater good of the community served by those councillors. Must comply with the constitutional injunction to municipalities and to prioritize the basic needs of local communities and to provide basic minimum services to all of such local communities. So the inferences that can be drawn from this judgment is that for a councillor, not attending meetings does not serve the public interest or their own constituencies. And also, a councillor may not continue to draw salaries, whereas they cannot be able to serve for them. So that has been the reason why this was regularized in the Code of Conduct regulations. So in terms of the voting at council meetings, this also is a reinforcement that if a councillor votes in favor of or agrees in legislation applicable to local government, will be deemed to be in breach of the code. It also extends to other offenses that are are prescribed in terms of the MFMA. These are offenses relating to allegation of financial misconduct that if a councillor commits such, will be deemed to be in breach of the code. So item 6 deals with the prescribed value of gifts received by councillor. So this has not changed, it's still 1,000 rand, but it requires council to have a council gift register to register those gifts that a councillor may receive, and also to ensure that they inform such an individual with whom or organization within whom they will have received the gift, and to place such an information in the council gift register, having due regard the protection of personal information, POPIA Act. And failure to do so will be deemed to be in the breach of the code. So here is a written phase in terms of the duty of the speaker. You would know that the speaker is responsible for ensuring compliance with the code in terms of section 37 of the Act, and also is responsible for ensuring promotion of ethics and accountability in the municipal council, and thereby it was emphasized that also to make sure that the councillors are aware of some of these, are aware of those provisions that are in the code, as well as this, the content there too. So the speaker must ensure that it is distributed and placed information, the copy of those are provided to councillor or the traditional and Christian leader participating in the to inform themselves in the relevant provision of code. Regulation 8 happens in the committee meetings, and you find that those matters are not brought into the speaker who is responsible for enforcing the code. And so to regularize that, the regulation prescribes that the speaker must, the chairperson of the committee must immediately report within 7 days any breaches that would have occurred in the committee meeting for the speaker to exercise his duties assigned in terms of the Act. Item 9, I'm drawing closer now. It deals with councillors in areas. You would know that item 14 of the code requires that a councillor in areas for returns may not be in areas for more than 3 months. But we have seen that happening in other municipalities, which I may not mention here. But it says that it places the responsibility to the municipal manager to immediately inform a councillor before that councillor reaches 3 months to indicate that you are in arrears for such councillor to settle the amount within the credit control policy of the municipality. So 10 deals with the reporting requirements. Provide for reporting by the speaker within 30 days to the AC and the MEC to report on the minister. This was to ensure that the minister also have sight of those breaches of the code, and to request the MEC in some instances where there is delay in finalizing those breaches to conduct an investigation. So 11 is just to indicate that it repeals those regulations that promulgate in terms of the Systems Act. So 12 is the title of the regulation. The regulations are called the Code of Conduct for Councillors Regulations at effect on June 2020. So in terms of the recommendation that there are a series of videos that were developed by the department clarifying some of the roles and responsibilities of councillors, as well as the code of conduct itself, as well as there's a poster that is available that we request that for the speakers as part of implementation of the provision I've indicated, just to ensure that this information is accessible, to download those posters and make them available to those areas like in the council chamber, where it can be accessible to councillors. That is to promote ethics and accountability. So also there's a template that was provided, accompanied to the circular that was issued by the department, that will be used for the sake of reporting. So that is also available on the department's website. It's accessible therein. And also there's an email that is provided for sending those consolidated reports, which is indicated there in code of conduct for councillors. This information and was rated to all stakeholders. That marks the end of the presentation, Program Director. Thank you.
Thank you
Over
very,
to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, members of the any questions of clarity, additions, subtractions, inputs? I see a hand here and a hand here. Any other hand? And Zulela has got a hand, the only mayor of some capital city lying somewhere in. Please give them the mics. I will not share mine. Please, they're going to say first before I allow you.
I just want to maybe as part of it reflect. And blow. And the further said it must be institutionalized. So this is the first step towards institutionalization. You understand that national development always so how do you institutionalize? You must begin to review your statement of governance to accommodate some of these things. Secondly, you must develop policies so that it is operationalized. Those are two points.
But who gave you the right to tell him well done when that program director did you grant? Okay, you are being hijacked. Over to you, Sis Gugu.
Thank you very much. In the code of conduct, we highlighted the issue around councillors who are behaving inside and how we must deal. But the challenge with our municipality is that as you do that, you see Parliament chair. There's a group of people that have got certain funds. When you become with that, you can see. But the staff regulation in this regarding the Speaker's office has not catered or gave provision to this thing. You know, the last council meeting, there was such a situation in my municipality where you speak. Now you only have security company there. You want assistance, security company say to you, but in our employment contract, we don't have such a service, and therefore we are able to remove this member of council. Let alone that the same security, they are afraid of this member of council because he was even showing them their council. Now, the partner in this instance must also be able to assist the Speaker's office with this matter to say it's either they are part of staff regulations or which mechanism must be used in dealing with this matter. Thank you very much.
I was raising these matters in the morning and youth guys thought I'm crazy. In the legislature is the police. Nationally, it's the police, it's SAPS. With us, we must fend for ourselves. It's okay. You don't even have sign language practitioners in your council meetings. Yet you are a city, don't respond to that.
Thank you, Program Director. Thank you, Chair. I just want to check two things. First one, it was innovation, there are 10 days of now, you have a situation where it has and is unable to attend the meeting, not because of its willingness, but because of the situation that it finds itself in. Now, how is this code of conduct assisting us in terms of dealing with that kind of situation? But the second one is related to maybe the unruly, which is not necessarily an unruly behavior, but you find a situation where councillors sit in a council meeting, they take a resolution, and then a councillor of an opposition party goes out and issue a press statement that is distorting the resolution that has been taken by the council. Now, the question is, can you therefore apply this code of conduct in terms of disciplining that councillor, or is it that because now he's doing it as an opposition to oppose, or maybe to, what is it, whatever a better word that is applicable, but as an just to play politics in terms of distorting or even misrepresenting what the council has actually resolved on, of which he was part of that particular resolution. But when he goes out, he plays to the gallery and then starts, using it for a political purpose. Now, can then the speaker use this code of conduct to discipline that councillor? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, if I understood you well, the code of conduct has been signed, right? It's not a recommendation, it's signed. You are presenting it for noting, right? And therefore, our assignment and responsibility as a PMA is to note and take home and ask for further capacitation for implementation, right? The code of conduct is finalized. All the consultations have taken place. Now it's coming to us for noting. All we have to do through you speakers is to go back. You arrange workshops, we get workshops so that we know when we implement, we are implementing something that we understand. Arebua lawyer.
Thanks, Chair. I think also let's just add a recommendation there that we must refer it to the working group. I think this is the wellness working group now, to also take speakers through on it, on this matter. But I think what the executive mayor Matlosana is saying is not necessarily questioning the regulations. Is necessarily saying, is asking a question. And maybe perhaps if it's not captured in the regulations, it becomes another segment that we must continue to lobby for. But I'm imagining a situation whereby the executive mayor is in opposition in some point and would have to want to play to the gallery and politic, and would be restricted in that regard.
I'm just putting it out there. But I think its regulation is for us to communicate, but also refer to the working group that it becomes to take it. Yeah.
You may respond in 2 minutes if you would love to do that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the first, I see that mostly with some of the comments, but the first issue that was raised in terms of mechanism of those councillors behaves in an manner, what I study undertaken to ensure the implementation of such provision. In that, I understand not all councils have the law enforcement personnel that are employed by municipality, but provides for that. I understand that also the code itself provide for some of the matters that can be dealt with in terms of the standing rules and orders of the council itself. So the council itself, I would advise that should utilize such a mechanism to see how they deal with those matters in an instances where there's no law enforcement personnel. The other issue related to maybe incarcerated. We've had one case and we did seek for a legal opinion on that matter. There was one instance in KZN where a councillor was incarcerated and happened to have missed even more than 3 meetings. And the way the opinion came out is that during that period, such councillor, if it extends to more than 3 months, to have been in sort of, and that that matter is finalized. But if he's found guilty of having committed any criminal offense, such matters, you know, the constitution also provide that you cannot be as a councillor, serve as a councillor if you have been incarcerated for a sentence that may precede 5 years.
Okay.
So it will also, those issues will need to be dealt with. Also in terms of the standing rules and orders of the council, in terms of how they ensure the management of leave. The other issue relates to a councillor who I took it as a disclosure of unauthorized information. So I believe there's much mechanism in the code of conduct itself, in the Found Act, which provide for those matters of unnecessary. I can't term it well, but it says something like that, disclosure of unauthorized information. So it's a breach of the code if that has been discussed in the closed meeting of the council and information that may not be disclosed of. So yeah, I understand in Parliament they have sergeant arms to deal with those law enforcement. In terms of removal of councillors who behave unruly, but I believe for those municipalities that does not have that can also utilize the standing rules and orders to see how they tighten those matters. And the code of conduct is just a stepping stone towards facilitating the implementation of the code. So some of the matters may still be coined through the standing rules of orders of the municipal council. I'm not sure if my colleague will want to add, but.
No, he will not add.
Okay.
You are covered.
Oh, that means I'll get my
no
increase.
No, thank you very much. PMA, this is not a code of conduct, right? This is a presentation. We must go further and to go implement. Do we get a mover? it's for noting. Mukhali from Khosiram Motserimuilwa is going to note.
No, I move for the recommendation, this physical offense.
Thank you very much, Alderman.
No, I'm seconding him, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, the mayor of Rustenburg has got a different opinion.
The executive mayor.
The executive mayor. The executive mayor of Rustenburg local municipality.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairperson. Now that today, the 1st of August, what are we saying about the last recommendation?
Who are you asking?
The House.
You must come up with an answer.
Yeah, I think we must be given extension since August.
What's for the period like 31st of December 2022 and to be sub the 31st of July 2023. Okay, what do you have to say to that? Okay, the first deputy chair of Salga.
Perhaps before requesting for an extension, we must check because we submitted, the template was sent to municipalities, to different speakers because the template is meant to be filled by speakers. I think that's the understanding we need to build first.
Okay. Any other taker? It was sent beforehand to the speakers. Okay. All right, let's not open a forum of speakers, right? Rona, we are just going to note, we are requested to note, if speakers who have been furnished with the information have some delays for whatever reasons, they will individually engage through the same back to the sender. Ahe. The recommendations are duly seconded. Thank you very much. Duly adopted by the PMA. Thank you very much, Program Director.
Thank you very much, Chair. Then we are going for the last presentation, but I hope in our programs, the last item there, it was discussion and PMA resolutions. So I hope that we have dealt with it each presentation. So now we are going to deal with the last presentation. Department of Cooperative Governance, Mr. Tsepo Kasi, Director, Intervention Support. Where are you? You want to say something?
My apologies. We've communicated with the PDO that Mr. Kasi will not be available due to other unforeseen things. But what the DM said in the morning in terms of the IMSI bill, that it's gonna be coming, I've learned that it's already there on the website for comments. So people can actually start to access it and submit comments through. Not been making. Thank you.
Okay. No. I think it was the last presentation that we were expecting. Then we are done. And it's very cold in here. Very cold. It's wrong. PDO for any announcement. Come forward. Okay. No, thanks very much, PDO. Colleagues, PDO said there is nothing. It is the only consolidated report that we are going to deal with them tomorrow. Then tomorrow we are going to start 8:30. So please let us be punctual. So that 8:30 we start. But we are going to request the projects as leadership from various municipalities to the members. It can be business as usual at this time when we hold the tables. Something is wrong. So tomorrow we'll request all members to be part of this end till the end. Ne? So I will then request it for today's session. No, I'm in charge now. It's me who's the program director. I'm in charge. Don't make a mistake. Thanks very much. Okay. I will only remind people of the DDM per district meetings. Dr. Ruth Suhomutsi Mompati on the 15th August 23. Venue Freiberg Municipal Banquet Hall, time 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock afternoon. The second one is Ngaka Mudiri Molema, date 17th August 2023, venue Mahikeng Civic Center, 8 to 4. The third one is Dr. Ken Kaunda, 22nd August 2023, Potchefstroom Banquet Hall, 8 to 4 o'clock. The last one, Malaplatinum, 24th August 2023, Rustberg Civic Center, same time, 8 to 4 o'clock. So, relebogile ba gaetsho gore le binnile gone le itshokile go fitlhella re fetsa ka programa rona ya gompieno. Tomorrow 8:30 kopano e kwetswe semuso ba yang dikamoring ba ba yang kontle a reng kontle re ye sentle a re meng ka maoto re ko moimenti ya yo bontate ha ba roele a ba role re bitsa mmupi gore a tsamaile ba travelang a re kwa le matlo morena le modimo wa rona re a go leboga o bile teng ngalong ya mosebetsi ona o setse o le teng gone yanong o tla nna o le teng go fitlhella ka moso wena you are the sign and wonder modimo wa Israele re bana ba gago ka mehla le ka matsatsi bana ba gago ba setse ba tlile go tswa modimo wa Israele tsamaya le bone kganna dikoloi tse ba di kgannang tsa mollo o ba fitlhise ko malapeng a bone ba sireletsegile sala le rona ba ba re leng mo gare ga lapa le o re sireletse go fitlhella ka moso mabitsong wa bokang ka mehla la ntate le la morwa le la moya o galalelang amen tsamayang le Jesu.